all so much for your interest in this project. It's been in the works for quite some time with the Department of Energy, and we did deal with a delay with the new administration, but now we are really close to being, having this award definitized. Knock on wood, of course. But here we are. I wanted to go over, a brief intro about a little bit more of the project to give everybody a bit more coloring in terms of the projects that we intend to do, where there may be some duplicity between amongst the co-ops, and just color things in a little bit more so you have more of a context of the scope of work that we're dealing with. So I had sent out before our meeting agenda. So we'll start, like I said, with the project overview of Resist, and then I've got a quick glance, a chart that kind of shows what types of projects, and it calls out if co-ops are going to be using personnel or not, and just kind of breaks things down in a more simple way for you. And then we've got a grant roadmap of what the next 5 years. This is a 5-year project, and what we think that would look like. And then we'll go to the Q&A at the end. So let's start with our Resist grid disruptions. So this is the, we've got 6 co-ops that are in New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and New York. And one issue that we were looking to tackle was the emerald ash borer, which is a beetle that gets into the ash tree and it just wreaks havoc on our forests. And that's been a major issue for us. So I wanted to play this short video, it's really short, that we put together about a year ago highlighting our project.
This is the aftermath of the emerald ash borer.
Can y'all hear?
Wow.
So with the emerald ash borer, there's certainly a big part, which is this third topic of, we have 3 main categories for our projects that they fit into for this grant. So this is our reaction and our response to the advanced storm and invasive species resilience. So therefore, you'll see some duplicity of co-ops that are looking to. Is there somebody else? Okay. Co-ops that are looking for right-of-way mitigation. We also have strategic grid hardening, which may be some line upgrades to make build our infrastructure. And then we do have advanced technology and smart grid. We've got different technology that some co-ops are looking to, add reclosers to their line and switches. So I wanted to share where we are in location to each other. There are 4 cooperatives in the state of New York. DCEC, of course, is the prime on this. And we are located here in the red in the southern tier. To our north is Otsego Electric Cooperative, and north of them is Oneida Madison Electric Cooperative. And then to our west is Steuben Rural Electric. So all 4 New York co-ops are participating in this grant. We have Claverack Rural Electric Cooperative in northern Pennsylvania. So they're right over the border from New York to Pennsylvania. And then we have the only co-op in New Jersey, which is Sussex, and that's right here in the northwest corner. So now I wanted to break out a little bit more, a very high level view of what each co-op intends to do. So DCEC's biggest project is really to build a substation. So here's a potential location which we're looking to build this substation to create redundancy for our largest substation. For Otsego, they're looking and planning to do a line upgrade, which they would be doing in-house. For Oneida Madison, we're looking at doing a lot of reclosers, but that is also in-house work. For Steuben Rural Electric, what they're looking to do is a line upgrade, which would be contracted out. So that is something that would have to have a procurement and an RFP and go through that process. And that's one of their big projects. And then we have Sussex. We've got some underground work here and above ground work moving overhead. So it's not in this heavily wooded area that it is in now. And I apologize, I think I skipped somebody. Yes, Claverack. So Claverack, likewise to Steuben, they're also looking to do line upgrades. So that is also a contracted out, that would also be contracted out and require that procurement. Okay, so at a quick glance now, this is the spreadsheet that I was talking about that kind of pulls just the high level pieces together, where for each co-op at the top, you can see what, who they are, and then they go through their project totals. Here's the percentage of the award. So when there's anything for this bid for the work that would be pro rata, if it applies to all 6 co-ops, then we're hoping we would like to use that pro rata for something that's going to benefit all 6 co-ops. We've got budget years. So a lot of us have 5 years. A couple of us have 4. And then down here, you'll see these are the typical categories for your grants. So personnel, here are the co-ops that will be doing personnel. So there would be time tracking to go with that. For equipment, there may be some procurement that needs to be done. Supplies, like, those 2 categories, of course, are Buy America, Build America. Looking for expertise on that. And then when we get into the contractual, what I try to do is make it a little bit more clear for everybody to see where the same types of work would be going on through different co-ops. So we've got right-of-way mitigation, DCEC, Steuben, and Sussex are all looking at contracting that out. So, I've highlighted down at the bottom that we know that an RFP, process would need to happen for that. Same for the line construction. I've called out Steuben and Claverack and their similarity in their project. And then, of course, the DCEC, our substation project, is a bit of an outlier, but it certainly would require the procurement. And I'm happy to share these slides with you all after, because this is a good reference point for you. So for the grant roadmap, since I first said that we did experience a lengthy delay, they can't change the start date. So that is still, it's January 1st, 2025. Of course, we haven't started any of these projects. So what's going to happen is that once the award is definitized, then we'll, put 5 years from that date to the end. So we've got the full 5 years. We decided to wait until we have all the paperwork finished with the DOE until we, we don't want to guess. We want to be accurate and know that we have the 5 years. So the first year is really where we're talking about this setup phase and looking at, if we know how many RFPs or how many different types of contracts that are going to need to happen, like right of way or the line construction, the substation build, looking at what types of equipment each co-op has, what are there BABA waivers that we need to get, what are the details that we need to think about as we set this up. And then, of course, there's the reporting piece of it as well, which we've worked and we have some groundwork done of how we want to handle the reporting. But that would have to make sure that we poke holes in it. We know we're compliant, all the details are right. It's easy to track and trace. And so that's what we're really looking for in the first year. And we'll get more into that because we did receive some questions about that. Years 2 to 5, we were planning on having the ongoing compliance phase. So when things come up, I mean, of course, every project is going to have its hiccups and challenges, and maybe there's something that comes up on one of the line construction projects that needs to be thought through. So some co-ops, this is really important to us that we could have a line item per project or for your firm, to have it broken out so that if the work that the firm is doing only applies to one co-op, that co-op will be paying for that portion of the firm's bill. If it's something, again, that applies to us all, then we'll break that out pro rata amongst ourselves. So the ongoing, as things come up, maybe again, Buy America, Build America, Davis-Bacon, procurement compliance, and then environmental compliance. And I did want to give a brief update about where we are at with the negotiation, because part of it was working with the NEPA office, and we were successful at, it sounds like we've gotten through. We've got all of our right of way, any location for the line upgrades, also for our substation. It appears that we've satisfied NEPA's requests, and we've been told from the NEPA officer that we shouldn't have to go back to them for anything throughout the grant. Now, things change, so I wanted to keep environmental compliance on here, but that is the status as of this moment, and it seems like we've checked that box. So based on hoping everything goes smooth and we get this award definitized relatively soon, we expect that the grant would close out approximately at the end of 2031. I did want to point out that we did notice an error in the RFQ overview. That was document number 2. It's under section 7. We put in the percentage amount incorrectly. That has been corrected. It is reflected properly on our website now, but I did want to point out that detail. But you probably figured it out anyway, that we made an error. Okay, so that brings us to the end. Again, thank you so much. And we can open it up for questions. We did receive some questions shortly before our presentation, but we certainly want to do some written responses to that as well. But let's start hearing some questions. So, Mr. Rahman?
Yes, thank you. Good afternoon, Rahman Ordedi with Rookie LLC. My question is it one award or is it 6 different awards?
So it is one award. DCEC is the prime, and the other 5 co-ops are subrecipients. Okay. But the budget is rolling up just to DCEC, but each co-op did have to have their own subrecipient budget.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes. I see any other hands up?
Hi.
Hi.
Hi, this is Abby with Rookie LLC, Abby Oridetti, and I had a couple of questions on the system implementation. So the first question I have is the understanding is we're implementing one system that will be used by the 6 co-ops?
So good question. So if you've worked with co-ops, they say if you've seen one co-op, you've seen one co-op. We all can do things a little bit differently. So yes, it is one system in the way that for reporting, there would be standardized ways created for each co-op, depending. Okay, I don't want to get too in the weeds here, but depending on what tailoring the reporting to only the buckets of work, the only categories that they're working in. But in terms of their financials, they would be doing their books themselves.
Okay.
But then making sure that we standardize how those reports come back to DCEC, so it makes my job a lot easier. So we're looking for one standard that comes back, but each co-op has their own a little bit different way of they might handle the books. So we don't necessarily, we just want to standardize how the information gets to us.
Okay, that answers my question. So it's more of a system to be utilized by DCEC. And we're going to
Yes,
standard. Okay, I got it.
correct.
Okay.
Yep, standardizing it, and then a little bit more into the weeds on that. So there's some different forms that I found that look very user friendly that can track when a co-op submits something, and you can upload the receipts, any invoices, you can upload PDFs, you can have a comments section, etc., and create a workflow inside of that so that if it's something that's more like a complex one, like one of, Claverack or Steuben's line upgrades, then we would be able to, there's a different checklist that a different workflow that we would make sure we implement on that form so that we catch everything, but it is set up standardized from the beginning is what we're looking for.
Okay, great. And the last question I have, and I might have missed this, but is there ever going to be a situation where multiple co-ops are working on the same task for the same project?
Yeah, that's highly likely that we're especially the bunch of us that are doing right-of-way mitigation, so we could be working on the same task. Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, so I'm just thinking from a system perspective, how costs will be split out and tracked properly if multiple co-ops are working on the same task.
Sure. So you mean when it applies to your firm, like if you're say that we're doing the setup for everybody, that same task. Am I understanding correctly? Like that would be how you build that one task?
Yeah, it's just we have to keep in mind how we're allocating cost. If it's
Mm-hmm.
shared across multiple um co-ops. So that it's more of just to get an understanding how we kind of think through how the system will be implemented and like tracked.
Sure.
Janelle, can I jump in real quick?
Yeah.
Hey everybody, my name's Nick. And so one of the most important functions here is, so like let's say we have 3 out of the 6 co-ops working on a single project. We want to be able to make sure that like each of those individual cooperatives can like do their own like first level cost tracking and admin in-house. And then, we could take, let's say we've got, 3, let's just say it's a spreadsheet. We've got 3 spreadsheets that we can take and pretty much seamlessly, cut and paste those together without any real repackaging of information so that, we can say, okay, all of these expenses, from these 3 co-ops all go into the same bucket, and it's a relatively seamless aggregation.
Okay.
Now, Now, if we're using like a shared document, with some online sharing system, and we have different permissions for different projects, something like that would also work. But I think that the most important function here is that we reduce repackaging of information for DCEC, and we ensure that every co-op is keeping records the exact same.
Got it.
From naming conventions on receipts
Yep.
to how we keep records, like everything should be as standardized as possible.
Okay, I got it. That answers my question. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Nick. So I think I'm not seeing a lot of other hands raised, but we did get some questions before this meeting started that I popped them into a slide here. We can discuss these at a high level. We do know that some of these questions we would like the opportunity to have a written response that we will post on our website, just like I did for the other two questions that came in already. Okay, so can everybody see this? Okay, I really don't think I can make it any bigger. So the first question goes more into that lump sum contract and the expected deliverables for the setup phase. So just to talk through a little bit about some of these that are thrown out there, but we do have we have been working on a policy library ourselves to make sure that between the 6 co-ops that we're following the same guidelines. We've learned that in having other grants and being audited successfully, but being audited, that it's a good practice to have our policy set up. So we do have a policy library, but I would say from the firm here that is a grant compliance that we're looking through, and that firm is in agreement, and again shoots holes in it and makes sure that it works and that we're not missing anything. In terms of the procedures, kind of like what Nick was just talking about with standardizing the way the information comes in to DCEC. So having procedures that are written and guidelines of, say, time tracking, that you'll have it, co-ops will have this GL, this is how you set it up, this is how you track your time. So those types of procedures. The template, when we get into tailoring the forms that I talked about, that would be certainly a part. Those would be templates that every reporting cycle the co-ops will use their template that's been created for them with its own workflow, and so that could be part of it. The other parts, let's see. And then of course the setup for the contract templates for those right-of-way mitigation contracts, and the utility construction, those line upgrades. So looking at DCEC substation. So getting into that procurement policy, just like we've gone through this process, doing that process for with a line construction company. Those are other parts that we're looking to get figured out in the setup phase. We would like the opportunity to respond and completely flesh out our answers, but I did want to start digging into these questions. For the second one here, the RFQ overview, the question is for the pricing, does flat fee lump sum mean a fixed firm price proposal for the entire setup phase scope? That is what we intended for the setup. The second question, if we would consider a labor hour approach, we were really wanting to have that be a firm fixed price proposal for the setup. But again, I think we'd like to take this back to our team and have written responses to that question.
And Janelle, I think it's also important to note that, for a federal grant here, we basically need to have a standardized RFP here. And so, having everyone submit for the same project is going to be important for that.
Yes, definitely. So let's see, this third question, or this question here on the RFQ overview. So I do just want to point out that this portion for the grant compliance, this is not paid for by the grant. These are costs that each co-op is going to incur to make sure, for the sake of the grant and that we're compliant, we're following the rules, that we've dotted our I's and crossed our T's. So that's why we're looking for your experience in those Davis-Bacon, BABA, procurement, etc. But we're not. This is not paid for by the grant. These are costs that each co-op is going to incur. So we will again put together a written response to this, but the firm's invoices aren't really wrapped up into the grant reporting. And Nick, I know you wanted to speak on the last two here.
Yeah, these are really contracting questions, and we submitted a proposed template with our RFP documents. We're happy to take any red lines into consideration during the bidding process. As far as the second to last one there, the indemnifications and limitation of liability, we're happy to consider a limitation of liability provision. And the very last one, as far as indemnification being limited to third parties, I don't want to say, I don't want to get too far into individual contract provisions in this meeting. But I can say two things. One, we're happy to consider red lines, so please send them to us if you so choose. But however, as far as limiting to only third-party indemnification, I generally like to have a indemnification for a party's own breach of contract. That seems pretty standard to me. But again, if you want to have your legal department submit red lines, we're happy to consider them.
So we will post, I said we would post these answers by, I believe it was next Tuesday, August 4th, but I'll get on that right away. So you can, yes, Tuesday, August 4th, so you can have, that information. Are there any other questions that we can answer at this time? I don't see any other hands up. And, I had set a deadline for receiving all the questions by 2 p.m. today. I guess my question is, I want to make sure that, if you need more time, that I can extend that if folks feel as though once getting all this information that you want a little bit more time, if you have any questions. So I think, let's see. Can I actually request, can you show, can you raise your hand if you would like more time to think about some questions instead of a 2 p.m. deadline today, if that would make a difference for your firm? Or if you feel like you have what you need, okay, I guess. Okay. So I see a couple hands up, and I certainly, you know, I know this is a big project, so I will post this. Let's make the deadline by Monday morning. Let's make the deadline by Monday morning, 10 a.m. Okay, so you have time. I'll post that on our website, but we'll extend the window to receive questions for Monday at 10 a.m. Okay, and if you can just email them directly to me, and then we'll work on answering having written questions, and then we'll post them on our website, and I'll let the distribution list go out and let you know when the answers are up there. So, well, thank you so very much for joining and for your interest in our project. We're really excited to get this going. Forward to finally moving along. So thank you very, very much. Please reach out with any questions. Thank you.